皆さん、こんにちは。エーテルソングです。今日の動画では、自分がどうやって日本語を勉強したのか、そしてどうやって日本語能力試験 A1 に受かったのかについて話したいと思います。このちょっと自己紹介の部分だけは、ちょっと日本語で喋ろうと思ったんですけど、あとは英語で話します。So with that out of the way, I am going to talk about how I learned Japanese and how I passed the JLPT N1, and then also a little bit more about what my life is like after that in Japan here. So to go all the way back at the beginning, in high school, I did not have any Japanese knowledge yet. I took Spanish in high school as a elective, and I learned it a little bit, but I never really was that interested in it, and it never really stuck with me. But at some point, I had the idea that Japanese would be an interesting language to learn. And for me, I had a opportunity to do something called PSEO, which is to take college level classes while you're in high school. So you actually go to a college and you get both high school and college credit for it. So through that program, I went to the University of Minnesota and I started taking Japanese classes. And so I took the classes 3 nights a week, so they were longer classes, and I really enjoyed it. So for me, Japanese, or I guess Japan itself, was always a country I was interested in. I think that's same with people all around the world. You have so much, I guess, soft power coming from the country. You have, I don't know, anime, games, manga, just so many things like that that can influence, I guess, people as they grow up. And that's just the same with me. I was interested in a lot of those things, and then I was interested in learning more about the language. And as I started learning about the language itself, not just, like some of those cultural points, but the language itself was also very interesting to me because it was so different than, English or anything else I had learned before. So I had learned, Spanish when I was a little bit younger. I had learned a little bit of German, but none of that really stuck with me. But Japanese was something I was really interested in and I was really motivated to learn. So how my Japanese classes worked is we used the Genki textbooks. And so I think it was like in the first 2 weeks, our goal was to learn hiragana. And after that, we used hiragana for everything, for, like writing. So we wouldn't use any more English after that. And for language as well, we would use Japanese as much as possible unless totally necessary to use English. So the class was divided into 2 major parts for these night classes. There was, I think it was like hour and a half of learning new grammar and things like that, and I guess some like writing, things like that. And then the second hour and a half was speaking. So we would do speaking practice based on what we learned in the first half. And I did that for a year. And while doing the Japanese classes, I would also do other stuff at home as well. So I guess my hobbies and, just like things like that would also kind of reflect my Japanese learning. So I continued to watch, anime, also Japanese drama. And one of the, I guess, things that really I felt helped is that even though I was using, English subtitles to watch those shows, so I was watching, the anime or drama and whatnot, but I would, kind of subconsciously pick up on, some of the things I had learned in the class. So I would be hearing some terms that I had heard in the class. And then other times I would actually go to class and I would learn something in the class and be like, oh, I had actually heard that like the other day in like the drama or something I was watching. And it was kind of I don't know, just like a very exciting experience where I kept on feeling like I was making progress. And I think that was a way to put myself in a, like a Japanese environment while being outside of Japan, I tried to immerse myself as much as possible, with like just my like hobbies like that while learning the language. And of course, I spent a lot of time focusing on learning the language as well. Like I said, the first 2 weeks we had to learn hiragana. After that, I think it was like the next 2 weeks was katakana. And then we would have to use that for everything in class. And then after that, it's just kanji. And kanji is something that you'll be learning forever for the most part. It takes a while. And I guess like even like now I wouldn't say I'm perfect at kanji. I forget a lot of things. And a lot of it has to do with just the way that culture is right now. You have so much ways to write without using, like handwriting. You can write on your phone or write on computers. So it's kind of the same for a lot of Japanese people as well, where people can forget kanji because they use their phones or computers too much. I think it's kind of similar to like people with English forgetting how to spell certain things because, they have spell check and things like that. But in any case, my first year of learning Japanese was that night class. And I did that, for a school year. And that was a very good experience. I really liked learning the language. I had so much fun. And I wanted to continue learning it. So the next step is I was actually still in, high school at that point when I'd started learning, but I would be graduating high school and then moving to college. So I wanted to continue learning at the University of Minnesota. So one thing I did is that they actually had a summer course as well for Japanese. And this was a 3-month course where you could learn, like a normal school year's worth, like 9 months or so worth of knowledge in 3 months. So it was very compact, like, I don't know, rigorous course. So that is something I decided to do. So for that summer, I would go 5 days a week, I think 3 hours a day, and I would go to learn Japanese. And after that, there would be a lot of homework as well for Japanese. So it was basically the whole summer was just learning Japanese. So go to class, learn the stuff, go home, do Japanese homework, go back to bed, and go back to class. And it was like that again. But I would still continue, kind of like in a little bit of the free time, do kind of Japanese related hobbies, like I said, kind of listening to Japanese drama or anime and things like that. But after that, so I did the summer course. So over a course of, I guess, 1 year now, I actually completed 2 years worth of Japanese. And then I officially entered the University of Minnesota. And at that point, when I entered the University of Minnesota, let's see, so I had started learning the Japanese when I was 17, and I think I entered the college when I was 18, so I was younger than I think a lot of the other people. So I entered there at that age, and then so as my first year of college, so to speak, I was in the 3rd year of the Japanese class there. So, and then it just continued on. I think it was night classes again for that class. I just kind of liked how night classes worked, and they were just, kind of easygoing. So not as in like the coursework was easy, but it was kind of just nice to have longer classes at night so I could like sleep in some days, but that's beside the point. So anyways, I studied again for another year, and I was going through, I think it was still the Genki books. I don't remember totally, but anyways, I did that. And then there was option to study abroad, sign up for a study abroad in Japan. And that's something I was really interested in, to be able to actually go to Japan and use my language that I had learned. So I signed up for that, and I got into a exchange program with Sophia University. So in preparation for that, I also did a language exchange in Minnesota with a Japanese student. So I met with them for, I think it was like a couple months, like maybe once a week or so. And I would speak both English, and Japanese. And so I would practice my Japanese and they would practice their English. And it was like, it was a good way to, practice some actual, Japanese with some people outside the classroom. And by the time I went to Japan that following year on the study abroad, I had a pretty good basis for Japanese down. I had, I could say I could do everyday conversation fairly well. So even going to Japan for the first time, there was somebody to pick me up from the school there, and I was able to speak with them somewhat. But I went to Japan, and then I had decided to do a homestay, which I'm very happy that I did, because that was a way to really immerse myself in the language once again. So one thing I noticed is that for a lot of people that were studying abroad and going to Japan, they would a lot of times get into groups of people speaking English. So they all came to Japan, I would assume, to, like speak Japanese or learn Japanese and things like that. But they would always be speaking English. They would be in these groups speaking English with other, exchange students coming over. And their Japanese would not improve very much because they wouldn't be using it very much. They would just constantly be speaking English. And I guess a lot of the people at the Sophia University as well, they had some, there's a lot of people that could speak English there as well. So a lot of the people would just end up speaking English all the time and have, I guess, minimal gains to their Japanese. But for me, I wanted to try to avoid that. So what I did, for one, is the homestay, which was great. So I was in a Japanese-speaking environment when I went home. There was like a host mother that I would speak to, and she would make me dinner. And while eating, we would talk about various things, and she would take me to various things around the town as well. So I got to experience some of the culture of Japan as well. And then while at school, I would focus on speaking Japanese as much as possible. So I would try to just speak to, other Japanese people. So I guess somewhat I ended up avoiding some other exchange students somewhat because I wanted to really focus on my language learning. So, I mean, it's not like totally necessary, but I would say try to find, a good balance there where you're able to keep practicing your Japanese, you're able to, you don't get caught into that group that only speaks English. Make sure you have the opportunity to, since you're in Japan, to, actually speak Japanese if you get over here. So after that, so it was a year study abroad in Japan, which was, I would say, quite almost like life-changing for me. It really changed my, outlook on life, or changed kind of me as a person, like what I wanted to do. And it made me feel more independent since I was living, in another country with a whole new language. I was with a host family, but still it was like all by myself for, like a whole year. I felt like a lot more independent and a lot more, I guess, sure of like what I wanted to do in the future. And then what I really wanted to do was go back to Japan. So the first thing when I went back to America, it was actually something of like a reverse culture shock, where I had spent so much time in Japan and I had such a great time. But I go back to Japan, I'm like, everything's so different, and it's not it's not where I want to be right now. So it was like I don't know, like maybe like a small kind of like depression kind of like mood that I got in. But I went back to my school there, University of Minnesota, and I had enough credits kind of built up where I would be able to graduate that year if I took the right courses. So what I decided to do is, like graduate early then, because like the first year I actually got into college, I started, like the third year of Japanese, and then I studied abroad for a year. And now it's like my actual year of college, but I'm able to graduate if I get the credits. So I was lucky to be able to have taken, kind of like courses beforehand in high school. But anyways, so my goal was to get back to Japan. So to do that, I was looking at some ways to do that, and there was another like kind of like study program at Sophia University. It was like, I forget, it was like a Japanese studies program for like 1 year. And I decided I wanted to try that. So I applied for that and I was able to get in. But one thing about that was that the Japanese studies program, Japanese schools, they start classes in the spring, so like April. But my college wouldn't be ending until May. So there would be about a 1 month or so overlap where I would have to be in both countries at once, and that wouldn't work. But so to kind of get over that, for my last semester of college at the University of Minnesota, I took all online classes except for one class, which was my, I think it was like the graduation, like your thesis kind of class. And that one had to be in person, but I talked to the teacher and asked if I would be able to finish up the, like last month or so of it online. And he gave me the okay. So I was able to do that, which was great. So for ending up for was like the last month of my school at the University of Minnesota, I actually went to Japan and I was taking classes at Sophia University again, and then University of Minnesota classes online, which was kind of a weird predicament. So I was actually going to two schools at once. But I was able to get back to Japan then. Oh, and I guess there was one thing I kind of skipped over, but before going back to Japan in that winter, I had gone to Chicago to take the JLPT N2. And I don't know, I guess I didn't really like study anything beforehand for it. And there's like certain study books for it and things like that, but I just kind of went in and did it and just wanted to see kind of where I was at. And I was able to pass that fine. So I was excited about that. So I passed the JLPT N2 before going back to Japan again. So now I was back in Japan taking classes once again, one more year at Sophia University. And that was another great time. So I got to kind of just experience more life in Japan, do some more studying of Japanese. And then I guess as it came to the end of that year, I was left with wondering kind of like what I want to do next. So I know I want to be in Japan, but what do I want to do in Japan was the option. And I'd considered, maybe like grad school or something like that, but there wasn't anything really I was dead set on studying. So after, I don't know, considering various options, I ended up actually doing the JET program for a year. And I was a assistant language teacher, so ALT. And I went to Chiba Prefecture. And I think that was also a very good experience. So I was able to go to I was doing actually an elementary school teacher, and I was going to 5 different schools, kind of like switching out during the days of the week. I think it was 5, or maybe it was 4. It was like 4 different schools, but so I was teaching English at those schools, and during that I continued to kind of study and speak Japanese on my own time. And in that winter, there was the JLPT 1, so the Japanese language proficiency and 1 test being held in Chiba. So I decided I wanted to go and try and do that with some of the other, like teachers in the area. So we all went to go take that test, and I managed to pass it, so, which was good. At first, I was uncertain of how well I did, but I got the result back and I passed. So that was probably, how many years? It must have been like around, like 4 years. So I did 1 year in 17 to 18, and then the summer, and then 18 to 19 entering college for Japanese. 19 to 20, I did the first study abroad. Then 20 to 21, I was partially in, was it America and Japan, kind of So it must have been, maybe it was around 22 or something when I passed that. So I guess maybe like 4.5 or like 5 years or so it took for me to pass the N1. But uh, like I said with the N2, I didn't do any kind of like direct studying for the test. There are lots of like books you can look at. They'll give you tips and I guess a better understanding of what the test will be like. And I don't know, maybe I was just silly. I didn't look at anything beforehand. I'm like, I didn't even really know what the test was going to be like when I went there. And I managed to pass it. But I think what really worked for me though is instead of, only studying for the test was just trying to constantly improve my Japanese by speaking to people around me, listening and like watching the Japanese shows and, like anime and things like that. And I started to read manga once my Japanese level improved. So I started to read manga as well. And then also by the time I was ready to take the JLPT N1, I was already reading some books in Japanese as well. So I think a lot of things like that I had acquired, various vocabulary and grammar and things from that as well, which I think helped me out. But in any case, I guess after that, even though I like passed the N1, I was still kind of left with what do I want to do in Japan. So I was teaching English as, like I said, for an assistant language teacher. But while that was fun, it really wasn't something I wanted to do forever. So it really came down to, I didn't want to just be the person that spoke English in Japan. I wanted to actually, use my Japanese or be able to do more than just English. So I kind of thought of like various options, and I decided to actually study programming in Japan after that. So after my 1 year in the JET program, I went to study programming in Japan, and I studied that for actually 4 years to get a pretty good grasp of programming. And then I am now working at a company in Japan using programming skills. So I'm very happy that everything kind of worked out and I was able to kind of forge my own path in Japan. I would say that one nice thing about, like those kind of IT skills is even if you're not 100%, like perfect at a language, a lot of IT also comes from English. So you can like look up and reference things in English as well. The programming as well is like that. So I didn't really want to be, I don't know. It's kind of comes down to me as like a person where I didn't really want to be, up front and around a bunch of people speaking or doing something. So being able to kind of like be in the back as a programmer kind of fit me. But as for like, what kind of job or something you want to do in the future, that's up to you, whatever your interests are. But so overall, I guess just kind of summing everything up, things I would like to say is when you're learning Japanese, just try to keep interested in it, you keep yourself motivated. Try to use like other things like, I don't know, games or manga or shows and things like that to create a Japanese environment, even if you're outside of Japan, that's possible. Nowadays, I think it's very easy to do language exchanges online. So once you can get some of like the basics down of Japanese, you can start doing language exchanges to talk to Japanese people, which will help out a lot. If you have a chance to go to Japan, I highly recommend that. That's what helped me the most, I would have to say, is just, living in Japan, being surrounded by Japanese, speaking the language. Even now, I like pick up new words and things occasionally, so I'm still learning. But as for myself currently, I live in Japan. I have a family here now. I speak Japanese nearly 100% while I'm over here. I have Japanese friends and whatnot as well, and we speak all in Japanese. So I actually barely use any English over here, which sometimes causes me to forget, certain words. Like, I'm like, what was that called again in English, or things like that. So that's just kind of how it is. But yeah, if you don't use a language, you can forget things, even if it's your native language, I'd have to say. But I still keep up with like English content and whatnot, so I can stay with some of the newer words. But that's kind of like just about everything, I guess, that comes to mind. As for me currently, I watch shows or movies and things like that without any subtitles at all. So I'm perfectly, fluent in Japanese now. I read manga or books in Japanese. I actually listen to a lot of audiobooks in Japanese. So that's probably what I do like the most currently. I really like listening to the Japanese audiobooks, but overall, I guess, what can I say? I guess I'm just really happy that I decided to go forward and learn Japanese. And I think if you're interested in Japan as a culture and also as like the language, and you're interested in maybe like living here or going here someday, I highly recommend trying out learning Japanese. If you have any questions about learning Japanese or Japan or things like that, you want to ask me, feel free to ask me in the comments. I'm here. And other than that, I put out a lot of other videos here, just kind of game videos and things I like. And occasionally I'll do topics like this. But if you like this video, let me know. In any case, I hope you enjoyed the video and hope to see you next time. Later.